Hello and welcome to The Buddha and the Coach. I am your host, Dan Mickle, and The Buddha Coach is powered by Soul Performance Academy, and it is a weekly vlog dedicated to the teachings of the Buddha in a coaching and educational light. The vlog, of course, is sponsored by It's Called Normal Athletics. ICN Athletics makes the extraordinary ordinary through adaptive beach volleyball. Everyone should have the opportunity to enjoy and excel at the sport of beach volleyball, and ICN offers the education and the programming to help achieve those goals. Help them make beach volleyball a better place for everyone, where everyone can play on any court. To make a donation and to learn more about It's Called Normal Athletics, visit their website at icnathletics.com. And again, thanks to John and Dave and everyone at It's Called Normal Athletics for their continued support, and most importantly, for all the great work that they're doing. All right, every once in a while we have a teaching of the Buddha that can be a little bit challenging to bring into the coaching and educational light, but this is not one of them. This one can be pretty cut and dry, but I also want to take it on a little bit of a different path than you might think. So lesson 30 is, endurance is one of the most difficult disciplines, but it is to the one who endures that the final victory comes. And we could easily just say, well, of course, that's coaching and that's sports and that's athletics, is we just have to endure to win. But what I want to specifically look at is endurance doesn't mean staying the same course and just grinding through it. I know we talk about, the grind and rise and grind and mental toughness and all that great stuff. But the problem that I have with that is that it gives a perception that once you set your path, you need to just continue on that path and pound at it until it actually works. And I think sometimes that can hinder us, that we may break through or have those moments, but in the long run, we may have exhausted all our resources. And to me, endurance means that we have to have those checkpoints where we stop and look. Maybe it's mid-season, mid-match, mid-game, even mid-practice, and say, if I need to endure this situation, do I need to adjust something? How many times as a coach have you gone into a practice plan and it's just not working? And the problem is, a lot of time, coaches will stick with it. We're gonna learn this, and damn it, we're gonna keep on going until they get it. The problem is that the best use of your resources, your personnel, your athletes' resources? Or maybe we can step back, take a water break, reevaluate, and say, you know what, we're gonna adjust it, we're gonna move on, we're gonna do something else. Because for me, the ultimate endurance is being in the hunt, being in contention at the end of the season. And that can be whatever your goals are. Maybe it's a winning record, maybe it's a conference championship, maybe it's a national championship. I'm not saying in the hunt means looking for a championship every time. I'm saying in the hunt for whatever your goals you set for that season were. And again, I think too many times we might grind through a situation that affects our ability to be in it for the long run. And that's the endurance that we need to look at. More importantly is the endurance of your coaching career. Is what you're going through currently, this season or this time frame, affecting your endurance as a long-term coach? And we see it in the educational field. Look how many teachers are leaving the educational field because they just can't endure it. And that is absolutely not a cut on them. I'm not saying that they couldn't hack it, so that's why they're not enduring it. They just decide to reevaluate and say, these are the goals for my quality of life and what I want to achieve. And for me to endure and get to that point, I can no longer be in this sector. I can no longer be a teacher. I have to move on. And I think sometimes we have to look at that as a coach. We really want systems to work. I really want to run this offense, or I really want to run this defense. This is what we need to do. And we end up grinding through it or using up all our, for lack of a better term, endurance points on that situation. It ends up affecting us in the long run. Sure, maybe we got through that. Maybe we worked really, really hard to beat this opponent that we had to beat, but now we have nothing left for the playoffs. We have nothing left going forward. We used it all up on there. And again, I think as coaches, sometimes we get too many blinders on so many aspects. Again, blinders on our season or blinders on this specific game or match or this technique or this scheme that we forget about the endurance of, hey, I'm going to have some of these players for 4 years, or, I want to be here for 10 years, and this season's going to burn me out. So I think we need to get rid of that mental toughness stigma that means we can't change paths or take breaks. If I'm having a rough time implementing a system with my team, and I know that that's what I need to be successful, if I take a break from that because it's not working, that doesn't mean I don't have endurance. I argue that it's the opposite. It means that I'm setting myself up to have that endurance. I'm going to reevaluate, rethink that, is this the right usage of my resources and my time to get whatever means the most, what endurance I need to get to my final goal. And I think that's part of the problem that we see with coaches getting burned out. They don't look at the long-term goal. What do you want to do as a coach 10 years from now, 20 years from now? And are you burning all your resources? Are you burning the candle at both ends now to get through a situation that's going to end up hindering that endurance? So what's more important, the endurance of the season now, or the endurance of your long-term plans, your long-term success as a coach, as a program? Are you willing to make sacrifices and decisions to grind through this season that might hurt the endurance of your program down the road? And again, I think too many times we don't look at the big picture. We as coaches get caught up in the now. And we need to look at how this is going to affect, because as coaches, we have to know that most players and even the support groups and other stakeholders, whether it's parents or administration, don't always see the big picture, and it's up to us to know what that big picture is and how we're setting ourselves up for that big picture. And I don't think too many times we have it. And the other point that I want to come back to is, again, taking breaks doesn't mean that you lack endurance. We see endurance runners, sometimes they walk, sometimes they take a break for water. They're still endurance runners, and they're still in that endurance race. They're just changing strategies for the moment. It's okay to do that. It's not quitting. It's not giving up. It's changing strategies. And we need to get out of that mindset that when we change strategies, we're waving this white flag, or, we're giving up on something. No, it's mental flexibility. Looking to see if there's another way to get where we need to go that is a better use of my resources and will give me much more in the tank down the road, versus the mental toughness route of, I'm going to bang my head against this wall until I get through it. I would rather use mental flexibility and walk around the wall instead of try to bang my head through it. Now, there are times that we have to, have grit and grind it out and get through tough situations. I'm not saying we avoid them. I'm just saying a lot of times we put ourselves in situations and we don't take the time to stop and look back and say, okay, this isn't where I'm going to be. And I think this is, in a way, part of what the Buddha is saying. That endurance is one of the most difficult disciplines. And it's difficult not because it's always hard to endure. It's difficult because we need to know when and how to endure. And we don't take the time to think about the long-term repercussions and what we can do. So as a coach, what is your long-term plan? Maybe you got into coaching just because your kid's team needed a coach because they didn't have one. Are you staying in it, or are you getting out of it? Maybe you're a high school coach and you want to become a college coach or a professional coach. How do you endure to get to that point? Because you are going to have challenges and struggles in each season and each game that could affect your endurance, your long-term goal. And if I can make a weird analogy, if we look back at the movie Friday Night Lights, let's say for a minute the coach in that situation had goals to be a professional football coach. when they make the decision, the questionable ethical situation about giving the player a shot just so they can win that game or get through that season, again, the endurance of that season is now in conflict with the endurance of his long-term goal of being a coach, right? Because you're going to look at that ethical decision. Do they deserve to be a professional football coach if they make that type of ethical decision? So what he thought he was doing to endure and what he needed to do to get through that tough season ends up affecting the endurance of his long-term coaching career. Now, in the movie, he obviously wasn't looking to become a professional coach. So, but that's kind of the way I look at it is, are you making decisions currently that are at direct conflict or causing issues with whatever your endurance is down the road? Is what you're going to do today affecting how long you can last at your next step? And maybe it is. Maybe you just decide, this is my last step. I'm just going to be this high school coach forever, or I'm going to be this club coach forever. That's great. Then you have your own endurance. Well, what's your goal? Do you want to win a national championship as a club coach? Do you want to win a state championship as a high school coach? Because then you're going to have to decide, well, maybe I play my younger players this season so that in 2 and 3 seasons, they're going to be stellar because they're going to be used to it. Well, that challenges your endurance of that particular season. And again, it goes back to, it's not about waving that white flag, like, oh, they've given up on the season. No, I'm changing my strategies and I'm still going to work hard for this season, but my endurance is focused on where these players will be in 3 years so we can make a title run. Because it's rare that you're going to be able to do it back to back to back to back. Freshmen coming in and you're going to win state titles every year. So I think too many times we look at it as endurance as in the heat of the moment, or where we're at right now, the endurance of this season, this practice, this game. But we need to look at what is the endurance to get us where we need to go for our end game. 1 year out, 2 years out, 3 years out, 4 years out, 5. Maybe you turn players over, situation, whatever situation you're in, so that long term isn't that big of a focus. But what sacrifices are you willing to make now that may seem like you're giving up, or it may seem like you're not enduring, to focus on that longer goal? So that's the thought. Let's talk about that in the chat. What endurance issues do you have? What conflicts do you have when it comes from, enduring a season versus enduring a career, or enduring a match versus enduring a season? How do you relate that? How do you weigh those challenges of what might be good for a game may hurt what's good for your chances in the long run, and vice versa? Remember, you can always reach me personally at Real Dan Mickle across all social media. Make sure you check out at 717 Soul for Soul Performance Academy. Share, subscribe, like, get the word out, but most importantly, put stuff in the comments. Let's open up. Let's have this discussion. Again, I love making these videos, but I love talking about it more. I want these videos to be a starting point where we open these discussions and have these discussions about things that maybe we don't always talk about. Let's spread the community and let's have these great discussions. So, peace, much love, don't suck. One day one. Remember, it's either one day or day one. It's your choice. And I'll see you all next week for the next Buddha and the Coach.